Let's get it. This is Life's Essential Ingredients with Jeff and a Mike, where we hope to inform, inspire, and transform lives, one essential ingredient at a time. Welcome to the show. Listeners, I say this often, but I have missed my Pasho. He's been a little bit under the weather and traveling a bunch, and that caught up to him. But Pasho, so good to see you. And we back, baby. We back. Pashito.
Good to be back, Pasho. Can't wait to get it going.
Oh, yeah. So much fun for me to get on with my best friend and then get to meet people from all over the world. We are season 2, episode 23, with the amazing Paul Casey coming from Tri-Cities area of Washington. And first of all, where you can find Paul at paulcasey.org or via Instagram at Growing Forward Services. And even before we get into the show, Paul, I do the research and I loved your website. You got some incredible tools and tips section. And I love your quote, leaders are readers. And Paul has, probably 30 maybe or so books under his book recommendations. Also has a great blog, so definitely make sure to check out his website. And again, the best way is just go to it, paulcasey.org, which then kind of links you to his business, which is Growing Forward Services. But it's all kind of the same thing. Growing Forward is Paul Casey. So let's get into the show. Here we go. Originally from Chicago, Paul has been a professional speaker for over 24 years, is one of the leading authorities in leadership and personal growth, especially time management, helping people take back their calendars and restore sanity to their lives. I love it. Paul is the founder of Growing Forward Services, the author of 4 books, podcast host for Tri-Cities Influencer, the father of 2 beautiful adult children, and the husband to his lovely wife, Laura. Laura, we got you covered in this episode, so Paul is all good. Paul earned a master's degree in education. Where am I at here? Has been an educator, administrator, chief operating officer in 5 nonprofit organizations. He's an ACC certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. A master trainer, is a member of the National Speakers Association. He was awarded Solopreneur, that's a tricky word to say, of the year by West Richland Chamber a few years ago, and currently carries out his mission of sparking breakthrough success by contributing daily inspirational growth messages on local radio and via social media. Paul, congrats on an amazing career. Thanks for doing the work you do to empower people, and thanks for sharing your expertise with our listeners. Paul, welcome to the show.
Mike, it is a pleasure to be with you today.
Yeah, we are excited. Again, listeners, thank you again for tuning in. I can't believe it. Somehow we're in 33 countries now, Pastor. It was 31, and I'm not very good in math. Then we went to 32, and somehow we in 33, baby. Larry Bird's number with the March Madness jumping off. So, Paul, we always start the show with a thought of the day, and it's a quote that I picked based on researching you. And this one holds like a special meaning to me because it was given to me. And so I picked this one after researching you again, and it's a simple one, but here it goes. What I do today is very important because I'm exchanging a day of my life for it. Why would I pick that one for you? And unfortunately, I don't know the author of that.
It's because it's all about intentionality. So we live in the context of time. So how we use our time is how we live our life. So like you said, every choice that I make today is either wasted or it's used in an intentional fashion. So that's what I get out of your quote today. It's a good one.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And we're going to go deep on this episode. But the older I get, the more I realize there's value, tremendous value in words that we use every time, that I think if we were to line up 50 people and say, hey, what does intentionality mean? And how do you, because that's a skill to me. and Paul's a master of leadership. But man, if you could give just that skill to anybody, it would be huge. So how do you define intentionality? And then put you on the spot real quick, how would you develop that skill?
Yes. Yes. Well, the opposite of it, the antonym, I haven't used that word in a while, so I thought I'd pull it out.
I love it.
The antonym of the word would probably be drifting. So there is a plethora, another good word, plethora of people that are just drifting through life. You run into them every day, and they're just reacting to life. Life hits them with a circumstance. They do the best they can to deal with that circumstance, and they go to bed and they get up and they go into another day. And again, reacting to all the circumstances that come in, they go to bed another day. They aren't taking control of their lives. And intentionality is really driving your life, right? You've got the steering wheel, and you also have the accelerator and the brake, and you can determine how fast, how slow you want to go. And then you steer your life in those directions. Now, of course, there's weather and there's other drivers on the road, to use that metaphor, and we have to do some reaction. But for the most part, we're in charge of our calendar. We're in charge of how we live our life if we choose to. And so to your second question of how to do intentionality, I had a breakthrough just last hour. I went to the gym before this episode and sort of clear my brain. So I was fresh and ready to go. And I really boiled it down to three things. You have to have vision for your life. You have to have a want to of where I want to get to, a little bit of dreaming there, a little bit of how I want to be better than I was a year ago. Then you got to set goals to get there. Those turn into actions. And then time management is all about getting those things done. So if I could break intentionality into three pieces, it'd be vision, goal setting, and then time management.
Man, I love it. I love it.
Hey, Paul, I have a question. Did you always have intentionality, or did you develop it, or did you have some breakthrough that got you there?
Well, I mean, my first career was as a teacher, a fifth grade teacher. And so as a teacher, you've got to be intentional. In elementary school teacher, you have to get in science and social studies, language arts, and everything, and then work around recess and music and all the specials. So you've got to plan a day. And I think what happened is I really got into this planning mode that started me on my time management journey for the rest of my life, because teachers are the best time managers that there are.
Man, I know you were in education. I didn't know you were a fifth grade teacher, but if you could give children a gift right now, if you could teach them, just say one thing, which is kind of a little bit of a naive question, but let's just go with it. And that's going to be the focus of every young person's education at some point throughout their day, from kindergarten through 12th grade. What would be the one thing that you think would be very helpful for all youth to take into adulthood?
Oh man, that's one of the best questions I've ever gotten, Jeff. So you get one on the side of the airplane, right? You get one of those little tally marks.
Take it.
That's an excellent one. Man, I would probably say to uncover what your core values are, ground yourself in those. Now, for children, I would have to explain what that really means, but the basic concept would be to uncover and ground yourself in core values, and then live your life in accordance with those core values. So as all the pressures of life come at you, and as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, and all the circumstances hit you in life, positive and negative, you've got this strong foundation, this strong base that doesn't shake you when those things hit your life. So obviously I would say that way different to a fifth grader, but that would be the core concept.
Man, I love it. I love it. And exactly what the world needs, which is the intent of this show, to get incredible guests like yourself to come on and share some of your expertise, share some lessons that you've learned through making mistakes, through doing things the right way, through self-awareness and evaluation. And then I love how you just tied it back into, hey, for the youth, let's try and help them develop their core values, their best self, with these values that are going to help them withstand any storm, which is just so needed, today. I'm not a big social media guy, but there's just so much craziness going on. And I couldn't imagine being a young person and not having the prefrontal cortex to help you filter out things, and so reactionary, unfortunately, and it would, I think, just get overwhelming to be like, well, who am I and what do I stand for and how do I develop this foundation? And so, yeah, let's get into the show. We're off to a great start. But speaking of young people, you still look very young. But let's get back to when you were, growing up. What was at any point of your life, but what was life like growing up for you?
Well, I was an extremely sheltered child. My parents, I'm an only child. So, which is like being a firstborn on steroids, they say. So, it's all about me, right? The world revolved around me with my parents, and so you get all the chores and you get all the presents. So a lot of different positives and negatives. But in the spiritual background that I grew up in, it was very like cloistered, very very sheltered. So it was just sort of me and my parents. I had a best friend. So luckily he was like a brother to me. And I found him at age 5. We went to the same school, the same church. We ended up being college roommates as well. He was the best man at my wedding. I was the best man at his wedding. So it was like having a brother, which was pretty cool because you're just by yourself. So my life was like, I came up with role-playing games like you guys are big basketball guys. I was a little bit, well, I'll do a basketball thing. So I had a Nerf hoop in my bedroom, right? Did we all have Nerf hoops, right? And so I would literally pretend I was, the Lakers from the 80s playing the Celtics. And, but I'm playing against myself in my Nerf hoop in my room. And that was like, I had to create my own world. I played APBA baseball, which is these baseball card games. You roll the dice, you decide if you're going to hit and run or not. And I kept stats and a scoreboard. So being an only child, you sort of have to amuse yourself.
Oh man, I love it. And you're killing me with the Lakers Celtics. Mike's down in LA for somehow, me growing up, loved the Celtics. We had Mike and I were college roommates, been best friends ever since, and we had at least one Nerf hoop, but if not a couple that Mike probably tore down after dunking on me or something. And how nice, to have a friend for so long that can really be there and talk about the foundation, of setting that and having that and him as a rock in your life. So cool. So what right now? Let's fast forward to just where you are. And I know you said you got in and got a workout and that helped get you some clarity. But what are some of your life's essential ingredients that perhaps the listeners can take and be, hey, I kind of forgot about that one, but, and I'll restate the question since I haven't asked you, what's the best thing that you're doing for yourself right now?
My morning routine has been steady for, I'd say decades. I couldn't tell you when I actually started it, but it is the same morning routine. It varies a little bit on the weekend. So I start my day as soon as I roll out of bed. I go downstairs to my reading chair. John Maxwell used to call it the thinking chair, right? And so that was a place where all my books, my journal is. And I start out by reading inspirational literature. I read the Bible first thing. And then the second thing I read is professional development. So either one of the 6 or 7 magazines on coaching or speaking or training or success, something, Entrepreneur magazine, one of those. And then I journal. The third thing I do is I journal my takeaways from those things that I have read, as well as I do a chronology of my life from yesterday. So just longhand, I did this, I did that, this happened to me, I'm grateful for this. I add gratitude in the journal every day from yesterday. I do the highs and lows of yesterday. I write down what would make today a great day as I look ahead into my day and I think about, okay, all the opportunities that are in front of me. And then anything that was a takeaway from something I read from a book. So that is my morning routine. If I can get to the gym early, I'll do it, but I definitely get the gym in at some point in my day. I may move around with my schedule, but those are huge success habits. And then I go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. So I get that 8 hours of sleep. That's another success habit. And then on the weekend, it expands just a little bit more.
I love it, man. The key takeaway that I think is getting harder and harder to do unless you are living with intentionality, which is how this episode started, is thinking and giving yourself the space to do just that. And that's my takeaway out of all the things that you listed. You keep reflecting and reading and then writing, journaling and reprocessing everything. And then say, all right, hey, what's the key takeaway for that? And how can I, one, be grateful for it? Two, seek it as an opportunity to do good work, today. And then three, go do that good work and then reflect on it again and be ready to do it all over again. Man, that's what we're talking about right here, Pasho, on Life's Essential Ingredients. And it is essential to continue to do that, and Adam Grant, I love his book, Think Again, and it just really you summarized it a little bit right there, but it just, can we, kind of be open to different perspectives, even all the things that we do, and in your case, Paul, of maybe taking a step back and, all right, well, let me look at my morning routine. I've been in this and I get wrapped up in this. And that's my takeaway from that book right now, is what are things that I'm doing kind of without intentionality and more so habit, and they're really healthy habits. But is there something that I'm doing in there that perhaps I could do, different, that might enhance my life or the lives of others? And so that's what I'm really kind of evaluating on myself right now. And I'm going to ask a crazy question. I don't know if it's the right time, and hopefully it's going to make sense. But I don't know if you're aware, Paul, but C4 Leaders is a nonprofit in Northern California, and we currently use pizza to help people focus on what's essential in their life and doing a lot of cool stuff. So my question is, do you have ingredients in your life that perhaps at a particular time kind of served a purpose, but at this point in your life, kind of what we were just talking about, you realize, what? They no longer serve that same purpose, and perhaps might even be getting in the way of you bringing your best self each and every day. And that's maybe directed towards you, or perhaps think of a client or someone that you work with that maybe has been ingrained with these ingredients that did serve them, but now no longer do. Are you following? I don't know if I'm asking that in the best possible way.
Yeah, and maybe I can liken it best to, I'm not going to liken it to my routines, because I really do feel that they have been serving me and I keep refining them each year, like you were referring to earlier. But when I think about pleasing other people, maybe this would be the best answer to the question. I'm a yes person. So I like to say yes to opportunities. I was taught to be like say yes, because you never know what could happen, right? A breakthrough could happen. You can meet this person, which turns into a future client, or you might be able to make this person's day, or you never know what it could turn into. But after a while, as you get older, you realize no is a better word. And because then it protects your priorities, those things that you want to live intentionally. So what I've started to do, I think over time, and taken off the pizza, as you would say, is those unthought out yeses, the ones where somebody goes, can I have some of your time? Yes. And now I pause before saying yes. And I think about, what am I going to have to sacrifice for that yes? And it makes me really rethink. And now I just don't meet with people indiscriminately. I try to still meet with as many people as possible. But if it doesn't fit all these other things that are headed in the direction of my life, I may politely have to decline that offer.
I love it.
Hey, Paul, I love your morning routine. And I don't know if everyone is capable of a routine like that. But can everyone have a routine during the day? Person works 9 to 5, has a family, coaches basketball on the side. Can they implement it some time for themselves each day?
I really believe so, and I think it is critical that everyone does try to do that. Now, I'm a more of a analytical or busy as a beaver, personality style. So it is easier for me, and I appreciate you bringing that up, Mike, because my wife is more of a open-ended, more of the otter personality, the expressive, right? And she's never done the same thing twice ever, right? Never put her keys back in the same place twice ever. So we have people that are more regimented, and we have people that are more like random. But I really think that everybody needs to spend a little bit of solitude time every day doing something that fills up their tank, or else they will run their batteries dry. So with my clients, I try to do is, like, some of them struggle with exercise, and I'll think about, okay, so where in your day might you put that where it's most likely to be successful? Is that early morning? Is that a lunch hour jog? Is that after work? Is that later at night? And so we just keep strategizing, and we keep failing, and then trying this one, and oh, that one might seem to work, until finally we settle on a time that actually turns into a habit. Maybe it's not 5 habits like I have, but I think there is that one that, yes, everyone could stick to.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. And I want to go back. You did such a good job of kind of taking off the ingredient of yes, that, again, probably did serve you and maybe opened up a few doors, but then you realize, hey, I've reevaluated everything. And that yes often does get me into trouble. So I'm going to remove that ingredient. But the key takeaway for me on that was learning how to say no. And I'm sure you work with your clients, and I think I saw something on your site about decision making. How would you help someone kind of go through making decisions? And that's a broad question, but that's just, maybe you can put it in context from some clients that you've worked with, go through like almost like a case scenario of, hey, here's some decision trees, and here's some things that would be helpful for you evaluating opportunities. And is the answer yes, or is the answer no?
Great question. And I think if we all get better at decision making, we're going to be better at intentionality. So I love how you led that, or put those two together. I think with decision making, first of all, you've got to define the decision. I think sometimes you've probably heard the old adage, you're climbing the ladder, but is it against the right wall? And you realize you're up this ladder and you're like, hey, that's not even a place that I want to be going to. So literally writing down the decision you want to make is the first step. And even if you're in a leadership team or some kind of family, and you realize, what are we talking about here? Until we finally actually write down the decision, we may not get our best answers. Then it's sort of like, why do we want to make this decision? Why are we trying to decide what we're trying to decide, right? That would be the second thing, the big why. And then the third thing, which is probably the most impactful, is to have a set of decision filters. These are questions that you're going to ask yourself before you make a big decision. Questions like, does this make me feel strong if I say yes to this, or will it make me feel weak? Is this going to lead to a long-term payoff? And payoff can be, determined many different ways. Or is this sort of a short-term Band-Aid kind of approach that I want to make? Does this align with my core values and my vision for my life? Or is this like off in the weeds somewhere? And if you have a set of, 5 to 7 of these decision-making filters, then you just quickly run through them. It becomes a little bit easier to make the call. And then finally, I would say, do the old pros and cons list that we've all done when we want to move. Like, we've got 3 houses to choose from, or we've got 3 jobs to choose from. I think we've all done this before. The pros and the cons, the positives and the negatives of each choice. See which one gets toward the top on that one, and then make the call and just go for it. And then iterate off of the decision.
I love it. I love it. I want to go back, because we mentioned this a couple of times now, of core values. And how would you help either how did you come up with them, or how would you help a client who perhaps is a little bit scattered and doesn't really know where to get started with their core values? And I think there's just so much evidence now coming out to and I'll relate these core values to a strengths-based approach, and so I think sometimes if we just don't know what we stand for, we don't know how to play to our strengths. So how do you help your clients figure out what that is and then start laying their foundation with that?
I started by learning about my values when I was in a program called Leadership Tri-Cities. It's a local leadership program. They probably have a leadership Vacaville. That all over the country, there are these cohort leadership groups that bring 24 people together from different industries, and they go through a shared experience for a year. They get to learn about their local community, and they learn about leadership, and you become very good friends with these folks after a year together. Usually these start off with an off-site retreat. And one of the first things we did at the retreat back in 2006, 2007, when I went through, was a core values exercise. And basically they gave us these cards, and they're with words like prosperity and wealth and teamwork and communication and family and all these wonderful virtues and values. And what you had to do is then, and this is what I do with my clients now, is you say, okay, is this totally me? And there's evidence. Everybody else would say, so this is me. Is this sort of me? Or maybe it's aspirational. Like I want to be that more, but I'm really not. And then the third pile would be, yeah, it's a really nice concept, but yeah, it's not huge for my priorities. So you're ranking all these words. It's like 52 words, like a card deck. And then you push 2 and 3 away, and you've got pile 1. There's a lot of good words in pile 1 that you believe in wholeheartedly. Then you have to rank them down to your top 10, and then your top 5, and then your top 3. And this is where it gets agonizing. Like, no, I don't want to throw away these values. And the facilitator's like, you're not throwing them away. We're just trying to get to the 3 core values. Like you'd almost die for these 3 words, these concepts. You couldn't be in a job that didn't support these. You couldn't be in a relationship that didn't support these 3 values. And then you have to write the evidence of how these come out in your life. That was such a powerful activity that now I do that with all of my clients.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. So let's go to the opposite of that then, since I know this is one of your specialties of you're working now with a team that doesn't have their core values. And so therefore there's a lot of conflict. How would you suggest to the listeners of helping them through if they're in a space where there's just, conflict and there aren't any core values? How would you help them focus on things that they can control, or even help them work through conflict?
Yeah, if it was a group and we couldn't do the values exercise, which I would still try to get them to work towards that exercise, because we're going to need some kind of common ground. In conflict, one of the best ways to get to reconciliation is through common ground. And in some cases, it's really hard to get to some common ground, that because we've dug into our position so deeply and we're fighting from that foxhole at each other that it's really hard to step out of your foxhole and get to a peace treaty, somewhere along the way. So if it's not shared values, it's got to be some type of at least some shared expectations. Like we're not going to interrupt one another. We're going to let people finish their sentences. We're going to hear people out. We're going to seek to understand first and then be others understood. The old Stephen Covey 7 habit, right? There are so many of these, and like these are the ground rules that we're going to operate by before we get into the conflict space. So I would start with some type of common ground.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Love it. Great advice. And then, you probably already speaking to it, but I know it's on your site and I didn't have time to read through everything, but you also focus on team health. So is there anything different that goes along with helping teams create a healthy environment. Obviously, this work that we've been talking about is a big part of that. But what other tips would you have if there's some other, new leader that's listening in to this episode and, hey, I would love to have a healthier team, a healthier family. And what are some things that I could do to incorporate that into my life and my team?
Yeah, I do a service where a company will bring me in and maybe there's some dysfunction going on or some toxicity in the culture. And I call it my team health exploration, which is just a big word for me, interviewing the key players on the team and asking them some questions that go below the surface a little bit more. Start a little fluffy with what attracted you to working here? Some of those kind of questions. What skills or strengths or niche do you bring to the company? But then I really get down to so what few words would you use to describe the culture of our organization or this team or this department or our family? And that really brings out some, where I say positive or negative, right? No judgment here. We just want to get 3 words out there to describe it. Those 3 words will then go many different directions. I use that as a gauge to know what to do next. Like if it's all, healthy stuff, great. If there's some words that are just like, oh, okay, let's talk a little bit more about that. Then I'll ask, what's not going smoothly here that needs a solution so that we can work together more. Like if nothing changes in these few areas, what's the consequence in 6 months for not making any changes here? This is where people really start bearing their soul, and they've got this objective person who's not emotionally wrapped into their situation there, and they're just out with it, right? Most of them are very transparent and they share their heart about what's going wrong. And I start connecting dots, right? As I go to the next interview, until I find some themes that we can actually work with. And it's a really fun for me to be it's almost like a team doctor where you're diagnosing and then, at the end, I meet with them all and sort of prescribe a potential solution for moving forward.
I love it. Let's get back to Mike's question a little bit in a different way, though, of, I think time management is, again, another one of your expertise. And, he was asking, hey, can everybody create these habits? But let's just get into actual time management, of how do you best help your clients manage their time?
Yes. So I'm going to start with values and vision, which I know we're beating a dead horse here, but it's not a dead horse, right? We're beating the drum. Maybe let's not use dead horse, but values and vision are really huge. So most people want to skip over that step and they're like, Paul, get to the tips and tricks, man. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get there, but let's not skip over what's most important to you. Because if we don't know what that is, time management is just moving calendar invites around, right? It's not very intentional. So I've got to know what your values are. You've got to know what your values are. And you've got to know what your 1-year vision is for your life. It's a little exercise that I would encourage your listeners to do, where you just think about the categories of your life, your marriage, your parenting, your business, your team leadership, your wellness, your volunteerism. Just pick these categories and vision out a year from now how you want that to be, and be as descriptive as you'd like. And boy, it's a fun activity because it really gets people dreaming again about how they want their life different than it was a year ago. And from that, now it's like, okay, now we can do the tips and tricks of time management because you know where you're going, and that's the goal. That's the why of how you want your life. So the first tips I would give, Jeff, is I would start with, at the end of every day, you need to have, before you shut the lights off, you need to schedule a daily review preview for yourself. The last 15 to 30 minutes of every day, you're going to finish. So if you work at home, that would be before you shut the lights off at night. If you're at a job where you're in an office, it's your last 15 to 30 minutes. You literally put a recurring appointment on your calendar in Outlook, and it pops up at 4:30 or 4:45. What do you do during that time? Well, you recap the wins from today and what you got done, which feels great, that you literally got some stuff crossed off and you made a difference today. But here's the kicker. You plan your top 3 priorities for tomorrow before you shut off the light on today. And this is going to allow you to have some work-life balance. You're going to be able to, just be done, shut the light off. You're going to know tomorrow when you hit the ground, you're going to hit the ground running, because like these are my top 3 priorities for then. And also your brain works on problems while you sleep. So you never know, you might get an aha in the shower in the morning, because it's like, hey, that was the last thing I thought about last night, and now I know what I need to do. So that would be my first tip that I would give for time management.
I love it. And you kind of beat me to the punch with sleep, because when you know where you're going, then your brain can be at ease while you're sleeping and not have to be thinking about, what do I got to do tomorrow? No, you've already put that baby to sleep, and now you can actually get some really good sleep. And let's get into your books. And first of all, congrats, man, 4 books. That's huge. And get into, and for the listeners, the static cling principle, that's on habits and mindsets, is one book. Maximizing every minute, and that's on time management. Leading the team you've always wanted is the 3rd book. And then leading with supervision. Obviously, we're not going to have time to get into all those, but give the listeners whatever insight you want on any of your books.
Yeah, I'll just jump on the top of each one of them. So static cling principle, everybody I think has a book in them, and that was the one that I've been thinking about for 6 to 7 years. And I literally came up with it while doing laundry. And I was pulling apart 2 pieces of laundry and got that shock because there was no fabric softener in there. And it was like, boy, this is like a metaphor for leadership, self-leadership, that you have to decide what you're going to pull off your life that's not serving you. And there's a shock when you try to pull off what you've been doing for a long time. And then what do you adhere to your life that is going to serve you? And it's those habits that, like your life essentials, you talk about every week, that you have to put on your life to be successful. So that was the first one. Maximizing every minute is taking all these time management tips that I've collected for 20 to 25 years and putting them all in one book. Now these are all thin little books, guys. So they're not like 250-page Adam Grant books. They're you can read them in an hour and a half, because I've really tried to just distill them down into practical takeaways. The 2 leadership books, Leading the Team You've Always Wanted, are the top 11 inspirational habits that you can take a group and meld them into a team. Because sometimes we're just leading a group, to be honest. There's not a lot of camaraderie or common purpose or inspiration. But as a leader, I think it's our job to try to meld, just like a basketball team, you want to meld them together. Leading with supervision, it's supervision because it's all about vision for your life, your team, your organization. And this book will help you craft a good vision, cast it to your team, and then carry it for the long term, which is the hard part. And then I just launched my 5th book like last month, which is Leading Through the Dark Waters of Conflict. And that's what you brought up earlier, is how do help people get to win-win solutions in these difficult conversations.
Man, I didn't know. Sorry about that, but congrats on that one. I think I only have one last thing that would be really helpful to get into, and that's the constant in everybody's life, which is change. So what insight do you have for just change, and then maybe insight? I'll ask you in 2 ways. So just change overall, and then now you're a manager and you need to implement change with your team. How are you gonna kind of introduce that in a way that's going to be well received?
Yeah, for yourself, I think we have to roll with change, because it's going to happen, and so we can either just watch it happen or we can dive in. The icebreaker question I ask in my change seminar is, do you put your toe in the water and scurry away with change? Do you wade in and sort of get the feel? Do you start swimming and go, all right, I'm just going to go with this? Or do you do a deep dive, a scuba dive into it and say, I am all in on change? And we all have different responses to it, but I'm going to try to encourage you to at least go to the swimmer level and just say, hey, we got to roll with this a little bit better. So there's 6 elements to change. I'll just hit them really fast. If I was a leader and saying, all right, I want to get a change initiative through, You've got to have trust. You've got to have built relationships with your people. If you don't have that, you could get to people could sabotage your change effort. From trust, then you need vision, which I just mentioned a few minutes ago, because otherwise we get confusion. People bump into each other and don't know where we're going. Then you have to believe that you have the skills to actually pull off the change, or you get anxious because it's like, yeah, I want to go with you on that journey and I believe in you, but I don't know if I could pull that off. And so then we procrastinate. Then the fourth thing we need is resources. Like, you got to give me some budget, man. You got to give me some help, some other an administrative assistant, or you got to help me through this, or you got to give me some time and take something off my plate, or else I'm going to get angry that I'm with you and you're not helping me help you. Then you need a payoff, which is the big why. Otherwise, you're never going to go all in. You're just going to be sporadically like, okay, I'll do this when the boss is around and I won't if they leave. And then finally, you need an action plan. You need specific steps to implement the change, because analytical people are going to stay right here until they have the plan, right? They have to have the plan.
Mm-hmm. Man, I love it. So much great information, again, coming from Paul Casey. Best place to find him is just at his website, paulcasey.org. He also has his Instagram at Growing Forward Services. My Pasho is all fired up over there. What do you got, Pasho?
Hey, Paul, I want to ask you one thing. I heard you say this, and I didn't listen to all of it, but it really hit home with me, and I wanted to get it straight from you. But can you explain to me and to the listeners, I believe it was about eating a frog.
Yes, Mark Twain came up with this concept of eat that frog. Then Brian Tracy wrote a book like 20 years ago about it. He basically says that if you have to eat a raw frog today, which would be disgusting, wouldn't it be better to get it over with in the morning than dread eating the raw frog all day long? And so the principle is to avoid procrastination. Do your most difficult task, the hairiest, ugliest frog first. Get that one done so you don't think about it and weighs on your brain all day long. If you hate the dentist, go take the 7:30 appointment. Don't wait for the 5 p.m. one. Eat the frog.
I love it. I love it. Oh, man, it's been incredible. Again, Paul Casey, find him at paulcasey.org. He has 5 books out now, an incredible website with so many great tips. All the stuff we've been talking about today is pretty much on his website. Again, he's a great, your tools and tips, his book recommendations, got a great blog, so make sure you check that out. Paul, we thank you for coming on, and I have one last question. John Austin has an incredible quote that I like. The only thing you take with you when you're gone is what you leave behind. Not to get morbid, but I've been a nurse for 29 years, and I've been surrounded by death. We're going to fast forward 50 years for you. You've had an incredible life. You've helped so many people. You're surrounded by your wife and your 2 kids and a bunch of grandkids now. And it's your time to say goodbye and go upstairs. God needs you at home. What is it you want everybody, your clients, family, to feel that you left behind?
It's going to be love. I know it sounds simple, but I'm a follower of God, and I want to communicate his love to others. I want all the relationships in my life to have felt that I was a conduit of God's love to them.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we're talking about, listeners, on Life's Essential Ingredients, Season 2, Episode 23, with the incredible and loving Paul Casey. Pashito, get us out of here, baby. We back.
We're back, Paul. Man, thank you so much. That was a lot of great information. You made it easy for me to understand, which is not typically on this show. I'm a little behind, but I appreciate it. Thank you, and really appreciate you being on the show.
Hey, guys, keep growing forward.
I love it. Thanks, listeners. That just happened right there. Boom, baby. We out.